Hey guys, welcome back to Fantasy Tipped. My name is Julian. We are midway through week 2 of the fantasy hockey schedule, and today I'm going to be talking to you guys about players that you should consider dropping in exchange for players that might have a little bit more value that are on the waiver wire. Before we get into it, guys, please leave a like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. It would mean the world to me. Alright, so let's jump right into it with players that you should drop. So we're going to start off with some forwards that you should consider dropping. Alright guys, so first on the list is Anthony Cirelli. And Cirelli's a decent player. He's gotten 4 points through 4 games, which is a really hot start. If you can, you should trade him. But the thing is with Cirelli, he's not getting that top power play time with Stamkos, with Point, with Hedman. He's on the second line with Killorn and Tyler Johnson, but it's not the most incredible line in the world. So yeah, Cirelli's going to get a decent amount of points. He's not a guy that's going to shoot a lot though. He's not a guy that's going to block a lot of shots either. So I prefer somebody else because he's not going to keep up this point per game pace. He's a guy that can be dropped if you see someone a little bit better on the waiver wire. If not, try to trade him right now that his value is pretty high. Next on this list, guys, currently 54% owned is Matt Duchene, and he's got 3 assists in his first 7 games, which isn't terrible, but does he need to be 54% owned? Probably not. He is a guy getting top power play time, so that's kind of valuable, but at the same time, Ryan Johansson is top power play, and he's just over 20% owned. So, on Nashville, that's not that valuable because they're not scoring a whole lot of goals in Nashville. If you can trade Matt Duchene, go ahead and do so. Otherwise, he's definitely droppable. Next is Evgeny Dadonov, Ottawa Senators, 50% owned. And I thought a lot of people this year were underestimating Ottawa. I thought they were going to be a lot better than people gave them credit for. But unfortunately, it looks like they're not doing so good. They're barely scoring any goals, and they're getting slaughtered by a lot of teams. So a lot of players are getting negative plus minuses. Dadonov's a -3 right now. That's something that you should expect to continue. Ottawa will continue to get scored on a lot. He is on the top power play, so I'll give him that. But he's only got 2 points through 7 games, and I think there are a lot better options on your waiver wire. Next, guys, is Brandon Tanev, Pittsburgh Penguins, 42% owned. And Brandon Tanev is a good player in hits leagues. In any other league, he should not be owned. He's not going to do anything for you outside of leagues where hits count. If you're in a league where hits count for a lot of points, go ahead and hold on to Tanev. If you're in a league where hits is not a category, you have to drop Tanev right away. Next on this list, guys, is Clayton Keller, Arizona Coyotes, 31% owned. And he's currently skating on a second line with Christian Dvorak and Tyler Pitlick. That's not exactly a great line. He had 3 points through his first 2 games, and since then, he's gotten big fat zeros. He's not even on the top power play right now. He's on that second power play with Goligoski and Kessel. And honestly, I don't really see the value in him right now. You can go ahead and drop him. Next on this list, guys, is Tyler Mott, Vancouver Canucks, 27% owned. And at first glance, that seems like a very high ownership percentage for a 4th liner. And it is. I don't like that ownership percentage. But if you are in a hitting league, he's a decent option. He currently has the 2nd most hits in the entire league, and he's been shooting the puck quite a bit. He scored 5 goals, but his shooting percentage is 24%, so there's no way that kind of goal scoring keeps up. If you are in a hits league, though, you can hold on to him, but please drop him, though, if you are in a standard points league or in a categories league where hits is not a category. Next is Jeff Skinner, Buffalo Sabres, 24% owned, and like I said in the last video, guys, he just had an awful season last year, and he's not going to get any better. He's currently skating on a complete garbage line. It's pretty much a 4th line in Buffalo, and he's hardly getting any power play time. This guy has very, very, very little fantasy value. Absolutely drop him and grab somebody else. Next is Capo Caco, New York Rangers, 21% owned, and he's playing on the 3rd line right now and on the 2nd power play. So honestly, the chance he has to really break out and do really well this year isn't that high unless he finally moves to a top 2 line or to that top power play. I would drop him and grab somebody else. Next, guys, is Joel Farabee, Philadelphia Flyers, 20% owned. And this was a guy after the first night was almost 50% owned because of that 4-point performance he had. Since that time, he has 1 single goal. The issue is he's not seeing any power play time at all. He's not on the first or the second power play now, and he's on a third line right now with Lawton and Lindblom. So his fantasy stock right now is pretty low. Next is Nick Ritchie, Boston Bruins, 10% owned. And he's been doing really, really well lately. He's got 5 points in his last 3 games, mostly because he's been playing on that Boston top power play. 4 out of those 5 points have been power play points, and he's looked really good. The issue now is that Pasternak is probably coming back on Saturday. So once that happens, it's very likely that it is Ritchie that's kicked off the power play. If that happens, his fantasy value goes way down, and I would drop him. Alright guys, so let's move on to some defensemen that you should consider dropping. First on the list, guys, is Mark Giordano. So before you go down in the comments and roast me for putting Giordano on this list, just realize that I'm telling you to trade him, not to drop him right now. He's doing pretty well, so he still has some pretty decent trade value. The thing is with Giordano this year is that Rasmus Andersson has surpassed him on that top power play. So Giordano is no longer getting that top power play time, which makes him significantly less valuable for fantasy. If you can trade him now, you'll probably be able to get a pretty good deal, and it's probably a good idea to do that because I don't really see his production continuing. Next on this list, guys, is Tony DeAngelo, New York Rangers, 63% owned, and he's pretty much fallen out of favor with the Rangers. I know you drafted him really high, but he's not looking good at all. Adam Fox has taken his spot on that top power play, and Adam Fox is looking so damn good on that top power play, and he's better defensively. And honestly, I don't see DeAngelo taking that spot on the top power play again. And he's also kind of a PR nightmare, so there's a possibility he might get traded. But until that happens, DeAngelo has very, very little value right now, and you can drop him. Next on the list, guys, is Justin Falk, St. Louis Blues, 42% owned, and he's quietly putting together a decent season. He's got a whole lot of hits, a whole lot of shots on goal, and he's looking pretty good. His plus minus is pretty good. But he only has 2 points, 2 goals through 7 games, though. So if you're in a points league, you absolutely have to drop Justin Falk because he's not going to get you points. He's not that defenseman anymore. But if you are in a categories league, you can absolutely hang on to Justin Falk because his peripherals are pretty good, particularly in bangers leagues where hits count. In leagues where hits don't count, I'm significantly less high on him, and you could drop him. He's definitely a droppable player in those leagues. Next is Ryan Graves, Colorado Avalanche, 40% owned, and he kind of had a really big fall from Graves this season, and the reason for that is he is not playing with Cale Makar this year. He had so much value last year, skating with Calder Trophy winner Cale Makar last year, and he looked really good. His plus minus was fantastic. He was putting up some points, lots of blocks, but this year he's not skating with Cale Makar, and his numbers are a whole lot worse, so he's definitely droppable in almost every single league. Next is Kevin Shattenkirk, Anaheim Ducks, 33% owned, and he's someone that I suggested staying away from in drafts because the Anaheim Ducks suck, and Kevin Shattenkirk is not someone who's really able to man a top power play. And what did they go and do? They stuck him on the top power play. It doesn't really make any sense, and he only has 1 assist through 7 games with pretty terrible peripherals too. You can absolutely drop Kevin Shattenkirk. Next on the list is PK Subban, New Jersey Devils, 28% owned, and the era of Ty Smith has finally started in New Jersey. They finally put Ty Smith on their top power play in New Jersey, and man, does that kid ever look good. The kid's got 6 points in 6 games, and he wasn't on the top power play to start off the season until very, very recently. If you are a Subban owner, drop Subban and add Ty Smith as fast as you can. Hopefully he's still available in your league. Next is Eric Chernak, Tampa Bay Lightning, 25% owned, and this one kind of puzzles me because Eric Chernak is not really good for anything. He's not blocking that much. He doesn't shoot that much. He's not really putting up points. In the past, he was kind of decent. He hit a decent amount, but this season, he doesn't even seem to be hitting that much. You can absolutely drop Eric Chernak. There are so many better defensive options. Next is Eric Gustafsson, Philadelphia Flyers, 15% owned, and after that first night, people added Eric Gustafsson like wildfire due to his 2 assists that he had. And since then, He's been pretty non-existent to the point that last game Philadelphia actually healthy scratched him. Yeah, he's not worth owning. You can absolutely drop Eric Gustafsson. Next on the list, guys, is Justin Schultz, Washington Capitals, 15% owned. And people are adding him like crazy right now. And I'm asking you why. If you were going to add him, you should have added him about a week ago. Right now, the only reason that he's doing well is because he's on that top power play of Washington. He's currently on that top power play because Ovechkin and Kuznetsov are both out right now with coronavirus contact tracing. But the thing is, they're only missing one more game, and that game will already be done once this video is released. So Justin Schultz really has no value. If you want, you can pick him up and try to trade him, or if you've already picked him up, maybe try to trade him. But honestly, he has no more value as soon as Ovechkin and Kuznetsov get back because he will be demoted right back to that second power play and will have very minimal value. Last on the list, guys, is John Marino, Pittsburgh Penguins, 8% owned, and he has 0 points through 7 games, and he's a -6 with pretty terrible peripherals. He had a pretty decent season last year, but I think we can give up on that happening again this year. He's really not looking good at all. Okay, now let's jump into some goaltenders that you should probably drop too. And first is Brian Elliott, Philadelphia Flyers, 27% owned. And I don't hate owning Brian Elliott right now. If you're a Carter Hart owner only, just kind of as an insurance policy. But I mean, the same kind of thing happened with Carter Hart last season. He had a couple of really, really bad games and people started to panic. But he turned it around and looked really great for the rest of the season. So there's no real reason to panic and believe that Elliott's going to be the starter in Philadelphia or anything like that. If you do have Elliott, you can definitely hold him through this weekend though, because Philadelphia has a back-to-back and Elliott will definitely get one of those 2 games. So maybe wait to drop him until after that. But afterwards, guys, Carter Hart should definitely be the starter in Philadelphia and should get 2/3 of the games. Next on the list, guys, is Martin Jones, San Jose Sharks, 20% owned. And I was starting to recommend Martin Jones as a goalie that you should maybe even add. And then he went and laid a stinker and let in 5 goals on 19 shots against Colorado. Dubnyk went in, replaced him, and looked a whole lot better. So suddenly it looks like Dubnyk's actually outplaying Martin Jones a little bit. So he actually might be the preferred starter right now. So if I had to choose a goalie in San Jose, I'd much rather not choose a goalie in San Jose, but if I had to, Dubnyk is my choice right now, not Martin Jones. Next on the list, guys, is Alex Stalock, Minnesota Wild, 15% owned, and he's out indefinitely with an injury. So we don't know if he's even going to play this season. Yet he's 15% owned, doesn't really make sense. And he's not even a starting goalie. Right now, Cam Talbot is looking really good in Minnesota, and backup Capo Cochrana's looking pretty damn great too. So if Alex Stalock actually comes back this season, he may not even be the number 1 or the number 2 goalie in Minnesota. What are you doing hanging on to this guy? Go ahead and drop him. Next is Casey DeSmith, Pittsburgh Penguins, 13% owned. And at the beginning of the season, Tristan Jarry was looking really shaky. He had 2 really bad performances to start the season. But since then, he's looked actually pretty good. So anybody who picked up Casey DeSmith as an insurance policy, if you owned Jarry, or someone who just thought that Casey DeSmith might take over the crease, you can go ahead and drop DeSmith now. It's safe to say that Jarry has reclaimed the crease. Last is Jack Campbell, Toronto Maple Leafs, 7% owned, and he's out for a few weeks now with a leg injury. There is absolutely no point in hanging on to a backup goalie for a few weeks. It just doesn't make any sense. Go ahead and drop him. The last thing I wanted to talk to you guys about are players that you should probably trade away because they're not getting the ice time or the power play time that we thought we were going to get to start this season. And these are both guys that started the year off with new teams. The first one being Mike Hoffman. He's not playing on that top power play, which honestly to me doesn't make any sense because that's really Mike Hoffman's thing. He's a power play specialist. So it blows my mind that they're not using him on the power play. And same thing with Barry. The only reason you got Barry is to play him on the power play, and they're not doing that. Thing is, Darnell Nurse is producing right now on the power play, so they have no motivation to stick Tyson Barrie back on that top unit. If you can trade both these guys away right now, you probably should because their value might go down even more if they don't suddenly move to that top power play and fast. I managed to package both of these guys in a trade for Pierre-Luc Dubois, who's going to be starting on a very deadly power play in Winnipeg shortly. That's it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching all the way through. Please leave a like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and leave a comment. Let me know how I can improve these videos. Until next time, guys, stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll catch you in the next episode of Fantasy Tipped.